All right, can you see that presentation? Awesome. So, yeah, we will talk about the chakras, the elements, and sound journey instruments, right? And the first idea is that our instrument choice should match the field function, right? And what that means, we will explore because obviously, like, we have different parts of the journey with different ideas or intentions. For example, right, earth grounds. It's our, base, our foundation. That's how it always should start, ideally. And then if we look water, it moves emotion, right? That's the main thing of water. It's like cleansing, but it's also moving, flowing. It's like really, this cleansing, moving quality. And we have fire, and fire transforms, transmutes, You can put things into the fire and then it will burn stuff and transmute it, grandfather fire. And then we have the air, which is mostly related to the heart, the wind, the flutes, the chimes, like everything that is sweet and gentle and heart opening, strings and all that stuff. We will look deeper into the instruments, but yeah, it's mostly to open the heart. And then the ether is opening our intuition, our expression, and our connection to spirit, right? That's ether's qualities. And in a coherent journey, we are aligning the timbre of the sound, the element that is according to the part of the journey, the rhythm, the space, and the intention, right? All those things are beautifully aligned together in a nice, coherent journey. So those are all things to keep in mind, right? Because at some point in the journey, you will have the great opportunity to share with us your journey. So those are the things now to pay attention to and to, integrate and get familiar with as a guideline. Obviously, those are not dogmas, right? Your own guidance is always, the most important and first and foremost. But those are some guidelines if you're like clueless or if you just want like a roadmap, this is really helpful. Oh, so let me go slow here. So how to choose different instruments. So there's different ways. We could look at the frequency range. This is the most obvious one, right? So we could look at low frequency instruments, mid frequencies, high frequencies, right? So low frequency instruments would be like drums, gongs, drones. Mid frequencies would be all kinds of instruments like flutes and string instruments, things like that. And like high frequency would be like bells, chimes, like anything that is like sparkly or high pitched. That would be high frequency instruments. And then we have like pure instruments, like tuning forks or singing bowls or things like that that are more like very precise in their resonant frequencies. And then we have noisy stuff, which could be like field recordings, for example, or we could look at the harmonics as well, right? If we look at like overtones or things like that, then we could also use that as a choice point. Then we can think about the material, obviously, right? Especially if we're working with organic sounds a lot. So the material would be wood, for example, drums, flutes, things like that, clay, clay pots for percussions, or even clay ocarinas, things like that. Those are all like earthy elements, right? Then metal or crystal, right? Or then even like could be the breath, could be our own voice. It could be a stringed instrument, it could be a skinned instrument, right? All those things, the identity of an instrument, the makeup, the materials, they can also be hints or like we can consider that in our selection. And then the envelope is also basically like how the sound is evolving over time, right? It could be a strike. For example, you could strike, right, like a like a singing bowl, and that has a certain vibe, or you strike a gong, or you strike even like you could even bow like a guitar string or something, right? This has a certain quality to it. And then there's a swell, which is a bit more of a gentle strike. It has this, ooh, swelling, like growing, intensifying, or opening kind of movement. That is also very powerful swell things. if you want to like move things or like increase, the intensity or open things up. Then you have the drone, which is a constant, mostly one note sound, mostly in the lower register. There's also mid and high drones, as we will also see in the shamanic portals template. But mostly the idea is it's a very entrancing, steady soundscape. It has textural components, or it's just a layering, grounding drone if it's in the lower register, like C0, C minus one. In that octave range, it's just like having this grounding, low end function, right? Or you have like shimmery things, or like, things like decay. Is it a short decay? Like, is it more percussive, plucky, or has it a long decay? Does it have a longer body, right? All those things we can take into consideration. And also silence is a very important thing, like in between, always the sound and the silence. They're dancing together for a beautiful, balance between masculine and feminine breath, inhale and exhale. So then we could look at the field role, right? So do we want the sound to anchor us, right? Do we want the sound to move us? Do we want the sound to activate something, to open something, to reveal something? Or do we want it to integrate something, right? Those are also very powerful qualities that sounds can have, also paired with our intention, obviously. Like, again, the intention matters most, right? So we can have that intention, and with that intention, we can also choose sounds and give them that function. However, certain sounds will be more anchoring. For example, like, like earthy grounding sounds, they will be more anchoring than high ethereal chimes, for example, right? So you can have that intention that a chime will anchor, but it might not be as effective as a frame drum, for example. And then obviously, like we had in the 2 sessions ago, the facilitator's coherence is the first instrument, right? This is always how it starts, with our coherence. And again, I realized how powerful that was. Like the day before, I was just sitting again, like with some rapé medicine, and calling in my ancestors and asking for support and guidance and their presence. I'm working on this Root Chakra planetary tune template right now, and it was so powerful what came through. I felt their presence so strongly. And really, if I hadn't had that ceremony, I don't know if it would have been that powerful and that deep and that magical, right? So I cannot really stress enough how important that is, to take that time to align yourself, to invite your guides, get into coherence first, and then start creating from that space. Okay, and then we have the palette of the 5 elements. So again, just to summarize, earth, right? Grounding, connected to the body, it's more dense, related to safety and support. Those are the themes for the earth element. Then we have the water element, which is connected to emotions, release of emotions. Can also be very sensual, very flowy, very creative, very playful, right? That's the thing with the water element. It's related to the sacral chakra. All those things, like sensuality, playfulness, creativity, but also release of emotions, or flow of emotions. That water is super powerful for that. That's why I always actually include water also in my tracks back then, even in the down-tempo tracks. I always had some water flowing. So we connect with that emotion to just, let it flow and cleanse us. Super powerful. And then fire is our will, is very activating, transmuting. It can evoke courage. It can help us to set boundaries and to transform, right? So that is the most activating part in the journey. Fire can also be warming, if you want it to be more gentle, it depends. I also did journeys where it was more like a bonfire situation, right? And you're just wanting warm people and, want to like to activate them fully. But most of the time, it is most powerful if you actually, make that the peak of your journey in terms of rhythm, intensity, activation, like this is really the part where you really get things going. And then the air element, after that activation is happening, then is this moment for, now we can open our heart, we can take a deep breath, we can connect on a deeper level with each other, with the relationship that we have to ourselves and the world around us, the spaciousness, right? So this is then the balancing part. If the fire is, again, the masculine, then the air would be the feminine balance to that. And then we have the ether, which is kind of the neutral point, back to source kind of thing, where we can, connect with spirit, our vision, our intuition, the ethereal bodies, the energetic bodies, silence. Those are related with ether. And so let's have a look at the chakras now, right? So for the root chakra, it's connected to the earth element. Again, these themes are safety, embodiment, survival, support, a sense of belonging, and gravity, right? And it makes sense to start with the root and to end with it, right? Or to start with the earth. You want to ground people first because, like most of the time we are not really grounded, we're not in our body. So that we start with that always, and we go back to that also. Like if you put people into the ethereal space and they're floating somewhere, and they don't go back into their body, it's maybe not a good idea to go in the car afterwards and drive home and things like that, right? So you definitely want to make sure that people land back in their bodies and feel grounded again. So usually that's also, you start with the root or with the earth and you end with it, right? Unless it makes sense to stay ethereal, like maybe people don't go home after, and maybe it's a retreat where it's all about like opening the crown chakra and learning astral traveling and things like that, then you don't want that, right? But if you work with people, people come to your space and they go home after, it's definitely a good idea to ground them. Okay, and then we have, oh, why is it going backwards now? The next element, the sacral chakra, the water element. The themes are emotion, flow, sensuality, creativity, pleasure, and fluidity, right? And if you look at the geometry, it could be the icosahedron. If you also want to work with that, some people, they link the elements to geometries and they combine that in the space, either with like images, or projection, or just visualizing it. That's a whole nother journey to work with the platonic solids and the elements, but it's definitely super helpful. And in many, wisdom traditions or like sages, they are working with the geometries, the platonic solids related to, the elements. And then if you look at the instruments, everything that's related to water, watery, like an ocean drum can work really well. A rain stick can work really well. Obviously, water recordings, field recordings, of rivers or springs, things like that. Also, soft shakers, they can help with the cleansing, if they're not like too sharp and too activating, more like gentle, more like textural, they can help. Also, some use a cello for that or a bass flute. I would not necessarily use that so much. I would use the bass flute more for the root chakra. But again, those are also recommendations from David Gibson, and he has years of experience. So, I'm not doubting his expertise. I'm just like saying, for me, that's not the first choice. I would put the bass flute to the earth chakra. Anything bassy for me is earth. Handpan, definitely tongue drum, definitely bowls, all those things I fully agree and would also choose, especially like all those, mallet instruments, they go really well, especially like handpans, tongue drums, those things, super nice. Even kalimbas can work really well, right? So the idea is that water needs a container, right? So pair flow with the drone, breath, or pulse. You don't have to do that, but it can be nice to just be not only flowing and keep some kind of, grounding stability. So yeah, if you have a drone in there or a pulse, it can't hurt, right? Unless you want to totally flow away and flow freely, that's also okay. Okay, so then we look at the solar plexus, the fire instrument element, and the geometry would be the tetrahedron. And themes are like willpower, courage, self-trust, and also setting boundaries, right? And anything that is related to the solar plexus chakra. Also, the way that we express ourselves as an act of living, not necessarily like, what we say, but just, our how we shine our light, like how we are either going out or holding back. If it's blocked, then we're holding back because of insecurities, things like that. So we can work on that. Instruments would be a conch, which is kind of like this shell, ritual shell that the Mayans used a lot in their rituals, or many indigenous cultures, actually, not just the Mayans, but that comes to mind first. The Mayan cultures, they still use that today. And then Tibetan horns, brass instruments, any kind of strong drums that are like or percussions in general, like any rhythmic percussions, obviously field recordings of fire, gong accents if you want, like a gong, like if it's not like super textural, but just, the accents. It's again, it's more about the rhythm than the texture. Cymbals, right? Anything that ignites, basically anything that sparks, anything that has this, you know, kind of explosiveness to it, that goes with the fire element, the solar plexus. And yeah, it should be precise, short, and intentional, and then resolved gently, right? I could just imagine like two cymbals like hitting together, and then they have this really short intensity, but then it's resolved gently also. So you can also keep in mind, you can watch, the space and the field and feel like how long you want to have the session. Sometimes it's needed longer, but sometimes you can already feel like, oh wow, people are actually ready, to transition. They're like fully exhausted or whatever, or like fully activated. It's a little bit up, to the day and the group and things like that. So it's hard to say, but I would say like minimum 5 to 8 minutes, maybe maximum 15. Like 15 minutes in fire is already a lot. But if there's a lot to be transmuted, you would feel it. Like you will feel if everything is burned up and activated or not, right? If people feel like, oh no, like man, there's more. Especially if you go like really deep, ancestral stuff, then maybe 15 minutes are okay. But usually after 8 minutes, people are like pretty exhausted, I find. So that's usually a bit for me. 8 minutes is good for the fire. And then we go to the heart chakra, the air element. Themes are like love, compassion. Also, grief is really powerful and really the space for that, right? A lot people get into, like once they're open and activated, then they're like, oh, wow, other layers, deeper layers are coming up, right? And grief is a strong one because the more we embody and connect with ourselves, we also maybe realize, oh my God, we were abandoning ourselves, we were not present, we were not here, things like that. And then grief comes up, or forgiveness. We can also guide people. I do that a lot. I just let them know, like this is the space now. You can connect with your heart and you can see and feel if there's something unresolved, is there some pattern, some trauma, if you want to, forgive something or someone, or like that's the moment. And then, people can do that also in that way. And yeah, it's a moment for tenderness after that intensity. You really have to have a contrast, right? So it has to be like really gentle, really holding them like an embrace. And yeah, like instruments will be like you could have like soft voices, like choirs work really well, whispers, harps are super beautiful, like strings if they're not too sharp, like guitar or something. Piano works really well if it's gentle. Again, the cello. Like he seems to like the cello. Like I never really fully explored the cello, to be honest, so I cannot say much. Definitely flutes for sure, more the mid flutes, and even the high flutes if you want to go up. Like that's also totally fine. Kalimba again works really well here as well with the water and with the heart because it has this sweetness to it, right? Handpan again works really well depending on how you play it. If the water is more rhythmical and flowy, here it's more gentle, right? It's less notes. It's a little bit more contained. And yeah, again, warm drones, anything that is like gentle wind sounds, not a storm necessarily, but leaves moving gently in the trees, things like that. And yeah, heart opens through safety, obviously, and spaciousness, right? So that's a moment where you give some more space also. And yeah, obviously, you have to make sure that people feel safe. If they don't feel safe, they're not going to open up, right? But we just assume that at this point, we take care of that and safety is guaranteed. So then we look at the next one, the throat chakra, the ether element. So that's the thing with the elements, right? So the ether could be also the third eye or the crown, but there is this distinction also that David Gibson makes that, ether is the throat, and then it's just like different elements for the chakra. But again, it's not a dogma, it's just an orientation and idea. And in that idea, like the expression would be one of the themes, right? Expressing your truth, working with your voice, resonance in general, creating through sound, but also listening. But again, also the expression of ourselves, like how authentic are we in our expression? Are we speaking our truth? Are we walking our talk, right? This is the throat chakra. And instruments could be anything voice related, obviously, like super good, like overtone singing, throat singing, like Mongolian throat singing, any kind of toning. Mantras work really well, chants, prayers. Breathy flutes also can work well. Anything that's related to the breath, shruti box works well, harmonium. And yeah, wind and the breath. Yeah, you can use it. I did that actually in the plantar chakra healing template. If you listen to that, the throat, it's basically mimicking a scene in the Himalayas, right? So there's wind, the mountain wind is there. And then there's the throat singing of the monks, and then it's the temple bells and things like that. So I was using that theme, which connects the throat also to the ether because the Himalayas are like so high up already, so that they also connect you with the crown, right? So it's kind of this bridge. But yeah, I feel like work a lot like with anything voice related. That's usually a good one. Or like, yeah, the harmonium, the shruti box. Even invite people to tone and harmonize, and having a drone like shruti box or harmonium is really helpful, to have that invitation and have that stable foundation that we resonate with and can then harmonize with. So yeah, it's really handy also to just have a shruti box with you, or there's also plugins for that. And so then we go to the third eye again. See, now it's called vision. Yeah, that's one of the themes. This is not necessarily an element, right? I would say it's also ether for me as well as the crown, but it's okay. Like it's more important the instruments and the themes. So themes would be intuition, symbolic perception as well, pattern recognition, dream state, guidance, connecting to our spirit guides, things like that. And instruments are like chimes, anything that is higher in ethereal and pitch as well, bells, whistles, small bowls, again, small because they're higher in pitch. Crickets also, like some people find that crickets activate the pineal gland or the third eye. Yeah, I mean, it's a very high pitch, right? Any glassy sound, any shimmery sound, subtle high tones, not harsh and shrill. That's really important. It needs to be gentle still. And maybe we need to work with some EQ, to balance that out because higher pitched instruments, they just tend to be more harsh, if not treated. So yeah, high frequencies open quickly. Obviously, also the higher the frequency, the more energy there is, right? Because the faster it's vibrating. So it's really important to use silence in between again and be mindful with the frequencies here, especially here also less is more. And then we have the crown, the spirit, right? Connecting us to source, unity, devotion, awareness, consciousness, coherence. And the instruments would be high tuning forks, for example, tingsha's, koshi chimes, bells. Again, pretty much the same like the throat chakra. However, I would use more cosmic sounds as well, like I like to use cosmic drones, things like that, that give a little bit more a sense of, mm, yeah, like beyond Earth, I would say, like it is something that is beyond the physical, something more ethereal, something maybe more dreamy, things like that. But again, it can also be very subtle and very gentle. Depends, like it's again up to your intuition and your guidance. But I like to have it like very transcendental, very cosmic, and yeah, definitely bowls, singing bowls, crystal bowls, chimes, but also drones can work well. But yeah, like also tempura, shruti drones can also work well. It's for me like the crone and the third eye are pretty interrelated in that way in terms of the instruments that you can use. You just go higher in pitch, basically. Then you can make a distinction, right? So if you use similar instruments, just make sure that you go higher up in the crown, then you go on the third eye. in terms of the pitch. Yeah, and then there are theme-based choices, right? So instead of saying, okay, we want to work with the earth, we could also say, okay, grounding, we want to ground. It's pretty much the same thing, right? It's just a different lens. So then, like you're going to use low pitch instruments like a low drum, a low bowl, didgeridoo, bass drum, deep voices, all those are grounding elements, right? Then for emotional release, again, any watery related instruments and materials like ocean drums, rain stick. Again, the cello, never used it. Saxophone, I don't know about that. I like for me, it's always having this certain timbre and quality that makes me think about jazz. And there's nothing wrong with jazz, but in the sound journey, that's a special thing. Like a jazz sound journey could actually be cool. Like I don't mind it, but it gets me out of my state. I listen to that like one of my favorite ambient composers, one of my biggest inspirations, Takashi Kokobu. I love all his releases, and he made this crazy cosmic album, and then he was using a trombone player, you know. And I mean, it's cool. Like it's still like super cosmic and everything, and you don't really fully hear that it's a trombone, but a little bit. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of irritating, right? So I wouldn't use a saxophone, to be honest. But you can if you like it. If you even play the sax, why not, right? It could be your thing. I don't feel that so much, but it's in there because David is suggesting that, so we just leave it there for completion. And then a theme could be power, empowerment, right? And then anything that is activating, like even you could think about battle, but more like a spiritual battle, like horns, strong drums, even like taiko drums, war drums, things like that. They can be activating. If you really want to step into that spiritual warrior energy, I think that's way more or less needed. But if people have never connected with that, I think it's good to have that experience. And if people call for it, or like if you're invited to create something that is calling for that, then yeah, those are the elements, right? War horns, war drums, things like that, fire, gongs, anything that is like epic, cinematic, battle style, you can do that. I don't tend to do that so much, but I definitely experienced it in a powerful moments and co-creations with my friend Darren Austin Hall, who likes to go there. He's working with the archetypes, the king, magician, warrior, lover, and for the warrior, he likes to have that stuff. And I was creating some songs, and it worked well. And then you can go heart opening again, voices, harps, soft string instruments, flutes, kalimbas, anything like that. Or you aim more for vision and connecting with spirit, then again, chimes, bells, bowls, tuning forks, and silence can be used. Or you go like an elemental journey arc when you go, from earth to ether and return. So the earth, you would like arrive in the body for gravity, low pulse, and safety. Those are the main things you want to look for. And then you go into the water element, you invite emotion to move through and flow, also with texture. And then the fire is transforming with a short and clear activation, as we already pointed out. Air is opening the heart. And then ether is dissolving into, oneness or transcendence. And then we return again back home with low bowls, breaths, soft voice, having a more grounded integration. And yeah, and then this would be a chakra journey arc, just an example, right? You could have, that's for like a very short, simple journey, I would say, but it's totally cool. Like I think, for you guys, that is totally fine, especially if you do it for the first time. You can keep it rather simple, right? So for the root, it can be as much as a low drum and a deep drone, and that's it. Maybe, like a singing bowl or like something like that. Maybe some, throat singing or like low chants, but it can be as little as that. And then for the sacral, just some water sound, again, the shallow. Something that is, cleansing and moving. Maybe I would add a kalimba or like a handpan or something to that. And then, for the solar plexus, um, yeah, you can use the gong to activate for sure. Why not? Especially if it's opening up, like this textures and it's getting a little bit more cosmic. It can be very activating. And I have a really cool gong library that I just got, which sounds incredible. And that works really well for that. And then, yeah, for the heart, you can use the voice. gentle singings, choirs, things like that. We already got into that. So this is just a very simple idea, with very simple selections. And I'm pretty sure you can find all of these pretty much also on Decent Sampler if you really look for it. There's going to be some strings, there's going to be some harps, shruti box, whatever, like something similar. Pretty sure you could find there. And if you want, I can show you also more, like in the next one, more sample library stuff. Because what I'm working on right now is like organizing everything based on those things, based on the elements and chakras, and having a project ready, with all my sample libraries that have all those instruments organized by earth and root and things like that. So I can share that with you if you want when it's done. And then just some quick ideas for facilitation, right? If people feel ungrounded, obviously choose the earth. If people feel emotionally tight, choose water. If you feel they are stuck or feel disempowered, choose fire. If it's calling for grief, or if people are guarded, they're not opening their heart, choose the air element and the heart. If they need to express something, if they have difficulties saying the truth, work with the throat. If we're calling for connection with spirit, choose the crown, or even the third eye. If people feel overwhelmed, just reduce the density and return to the breath and the body, right? Those are little guidelines. I think they're obviously for us right now, but this is just like, a little quick summary for what we just talked about. Okay, I think that's it, no? Oh yeah, there's the layering method also. So again, obviously you start with the coherence, you regulate your breath first and the field before playing anything. That's the first layer, right? Then you start to anchor with a stable tone. Can be a singing bowl, can be a drone, can be a pulse, like an isochronic tone, binaural beat, something of that nature. Anchors, right? Then we have the elemental texture, could be field recordings or anything like an ocean drum, anything textural that is related to one of the elements that we're working with. And then we choose a chakra instrument, for the center, like a main timbre. So like focusing on one is a good starting point, for the root it would be the drum, for example, for the sacral chakra, it could be a handpan or like a rain stick or something like that, right? And then for the movement, you think about rhythm and melody. That can be pretty much in anything, but in the fiery, it's, I think, most appropriate to really work with that in terms of creating activation, but also in the heart, I tend to work with rhythm and melody, mostly with melody, even because, like with the flutes and kalimbas and things like that, you can play beautiful, gentle, heart-opening melodies. And then, yeah, silence super important. Let the field digest. And for the return or grounding or heart coherence, like silence can be super powerful. We never have to underestimate that, and always leave space for silence as well. Okay, yeah, those are just, the sources, David Gibson, and then the Platonic Solid Sphere Field Architecture. I talked about that in other videos and presentations. Also, Hans Cousteau and the Planetware was talking about that. And yeah, again, the idea is use it as an inspiration, not as a doctrine, right? And feel free to find other elements. This is not like 100% complete. I think it's very, comprehensive, but obviously there's more instruments that are not mentioned here, and you can also find your own ones as well. But I think it's a good overview. Okay, so with that in mind now, let's actually get into Ableton, and let's sort of create a journey from scratch, right? And the whole idea with this journey creation is now there's different approaches. So we have the session view approach, where we could just jam in session view basically and don't arrange anything. That's one way. What we're going to do now is we're going to start in session view first, going to pick sounds that we feel are resonating and are fitting for the theme. And then we're actually going to create an arrangement. So that means we're going to put it into a linear timeline so that we could technically also export it. But then also we could reverse engineer it. That's a cool thing with Ableton. Like the arrangement view and the session view, they go hand in hand and they play super well into each other and you can really flow between them. And I love that flexibility. So we will see how we can use them interchangeably. Obviously, performance makes most sense in session view. So if you then eventually perform, we're not calling it performance. If you do a transmission, right? If you do the field tuning, then obviously you're going to use session view mostly, but it's also good to know and see how to create an arrangement. And also it can help us with our performance, our transmission, to reverse engineer it, because then we can set a structure. And there are certain things, like automations and little, ear candy and things like that that are more difficult to do on the fly because we just have two hands. And we can do automations and things, and we can just bounce it into a sample and put that in back into session and play that. Sounds maybe very abstract now, so let's get more precise. So first we're going to start with the shamanic portals. So, and maybe most of you know the shamanic portals, but for those of you who don't know, it's a pretty epic thing. We created a whole book around it. It was a whole past life activation for my friend Sky, aka Fluorescent, who is a visual artist. He used to work for Google. And then he got burned out and depressed, and he just wanted to make healing music, but he's a super talented painter. This was all pre-AI. He was painting that on an iPad, like with Procreate and things like that. And he basically like created a story and an image for each sound. And my idea with the shamanic portals was to, astral travel or like energetically put myself into parallel versions of Earth and parallel dimensions where the frequency is higher than currently. It could be in the past, like Egypt, could be Atlantis, could be different planets, could be the Pleiades, whatever. And just tuning with that energy and then receiving and being inspired and creating sounds. And then it ended up being like 16 realms, which are also the portals, right? The shamanic portals. So each of those scenes here, you see they all have the same color. So they all represent a certain realm, a certain scene. And when I gave that to Sky, actually, I just wanted to have one image for each scene. So I wanted to have 16 images. He did my cover artwork also. So I just asked him, can you just listen and create like an image? And then he ended up creating an image for each scene. And then he had like those full-on downloads and past life memories about all the sounds. And he ended up all creating all those images. And if you want to learn everything about the lore, this is also for beginners. So there's a lot of information on how to create sound journeys as well. If you look here, like all the different realms, for example, you can go to Arborea and you find all the informations, but then you also find the sounds that are being used. If you go more down, right, the inspirationals inspired by earthy, grounding, organic, lush, jungle canopy, magical, elves, and faith. And then, the elements, the low drones, like what we used to create it, or what I used to create it, like a long sustained single note soundscape played in low register to create grounding, transducing effect, right? So all the things I was talking about previously, you can also find in here more or less. So, that's also very beginner friendly. If you want to understand more deeply the sounds, obviously you can listen and feel, but, here are my intentions and how I created each of the sounds, the elements that are being layered and things like that. It's all explained for each one. And then you can really find out about it. And it's really beautiful and inspiring, if you're into fantasy and things like that. It's just super cool to read about all the lore and the stories about the different realms. It can really get you inspired also for the journey creation. Um, but yeah, for today, we're going to do a different approach. But it's talking about everything. We also created a super beautiful ebook like that comes with a template, which is a PDF where you can see everything in high resolution and everything. But yeah, for now, I'm just going to close this out so we're not distracted. So, and the cool thing with that is it's all in the same key and in the same tempo. It's all in 60 BPM, 432 Hertz tuning in C major / A minor. At this point, I was not aware of precise temperament, or let's say I was aware, but we didn't have the means to tune yet because the tuning files didn't exist. So this is either just intonation or Pythagorean tuning, right? It's still like pretty resonant, And it's still like, harmonically matching, but it's not precise temperament, but it's pretty close, but you might notice some differences, especially with my new templates that are going to come out in 432 precise temperament or planetary precise temperament. You might notice a little difference, especially in the harmonies. But most of it, like the drones, it's just roots and fifths. Most of the time, it's just a C and a G, to be honest, just different instruments. So you don't notice it so much, and it's all like pretty coherent and harmonious anyway. But it's not precise temperament, just for transparency, right? So, and then you look here, we have the different layers. We have low drones, mid drones, and high drones. And they're all created in a way that they can all play together. So, I could just show you like one scene, right? We start with the low drones, and this realm is called Twilight's Edge. Oh, wait, you probably cannot hear that, right? Okay, can you hear that now? And my voice is still good, like the level of my voice is still good? Cool. All right, so this is a low drone. In this case, it's probably just a bowl. There's other drones that are way lower than that. And then we have a mid drone on top of that, and then a high drone. And then we have some atmospheric sounds, which can be more textual. They can also be instruments, but they can also be atmospheric pads, you never know. Just have to listen. Right? And then the flora and fauna is like field recordings, right? And this would be the realm, Twilight's Edge, right? And then we could just launch the scene, go to the amber. That's a whole nother portal, right? So that's a whole nother realm. Has its own frequency and intention and everything. And the cool thing though is like, because we can hop from portal to portal, we can be like a planeswalker. You can just randomly pick sounds, and they're all gonna work well because they're all in the same key and in the same tempo, and you always end up with new stuff. You have over 8,000 combination possibilities, right? And you can just like, let yourself be surprised by the combinations. You could just like randomly on the push, just trigger some pads and just see what happens. It's cool. But for today, we want to be a little bit more intentional. We actually want to start with a root chakra, earth element kind of grounding thing. So we're looking for low drones, maybe didgeridoos, maybe shamanic drums, things like that. So I know that Vakinia in general, that's already red, right? So it's kind of like, this might be related to the root chakra. So we can listen to that as one of the examples. So definitely this drone here is very low, right? So that one is very root chakra for me. We could also try Arborea, I think. Right, it's very similar. It's even more simple. It doesn't have those overtones. It's even more grounding. The other one is a bit more activating. Mother, I like a lot as well. However, it is also very specific, right? So it's not like as neutral as the other ones. And it has kind of this transcendental feeling. Like this whole realm is inspired by Avatar, by the way, the movie Avatar, the blue creatures. So like if we go all of this is all like Avatar, For me, at least, like this was the inspiration. But like we could use Mother. For now, I'm tending more towards Arborea, to be honest, for the low drone. And the other ones, they're all like more cosmic or textural, or like not really fitting. Again, let's just compare with Vakinia. Yeah, that one is just a little bit more cosmic for me. It's like, I find that Arborea to be a little bit more grounding. So we're gonna use that one. And now you see like, we have those 16 scenes, right? But we can have more. So I can just go Command I, and this will insert more scenes. And now I can actually take my sounds down here, right? And I can make here, like make it red, you know, and call this root, because we can also work with more chakras, right? You know, we're just doing the root and maybe also earth at the same time. Right, so we have that. And then I can also change the color to make it red, because that gives you more like a rootsy feeling. Okay, so then if I remember correctly, I think the Arcturian walls are kind of like a didgeridoo, so let's check that. Yeah, right? So that one works as a didge. And then I think Soul's Ascendance was some flute kind of thing. Which you could also use, you know, for the heart chakra or the throat. It's pretty breathy. So that's a maybe, right? I'm gonna put it here as a maybe. Also, we could just go lower in pitch. Try that, you know, maybe tune it a fifth down. So I go here to the pitch, go down 7 semitones, which tunes it down a fifth. Let's see how that sounds. Ooh, not so good. That one is actually cool, but the first one I don't like so much. So we could further edit that, but for now, let's, you know, like usually if it's not good at the first listen, it's not a good idea to keep working on it. You can tweak it, and we could, and I could definitely turn it into something nice. But for now, let's just keep looking for something else. So what else do I remember here? Oh yeah, the Sun Shaman maybe. Let's listen to that. Or the Great Mystery. Yeah, no, that's way too high pitch here. So let's listen to, so like the Sunstone portal is in the same thing here, right? So I can just duplicate that channel, right click and duplicate. So because we can only play one sound at a time per channel, so if I want to listen to the Sunstone portal. Oh yeah, that's nice actually. That's more earthy. Because it has this grounding thing. I like that. Again, it could also be used for the throat, but I think it's really nice. It blends nice with the mix. Let's listen with the ditch. Yeah, it's all going still really well together. That's always good also to be aware of. Obviously, you're not going to play all the sounds all the time together, but if you think about it, it's also good to just listen how it sounds in the mix. Is it muddy? Is it cluttered? Is it masking each other? You know, like, can I still hear the ditch as a ditch? Obviously, the drone is not so important. And the flute always only comes at the beginning, and the rest is also pretty drony. So that works really well. So maybe let's find a nice field recording. Yeah, let's see. We have like something jungle. That's just a bird song. This is pretty crazy. This is pretty activating. It's nice, right? But it's pretty activating. But it could work also. It could be a nice balance to all the low stuff that's happening. So let's just play all the things together and then see. Maybe we can blend that in. Definitely has a nice jungle vibe, right? So again, that's a maybe. Let's listen to the bird. That's more gentle here, the ether lark. There's also definitely a maybe. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. The rest is, again, you could use that if you go for a night vibe. Or like there's also some wind in here. So maybe not ideal. Yeah, that one goes for the night. So that's more for the end, right? If you want to ground people again and you want to bring them back, then this is the night element. And also the owl is really nice. It's very specific. Obviously, it's an owl, but if you like owls, right, this could also be for the night again, right? So those are all like maybes, but we're gonna focus first on the beginning of the journey. So we're not gonna go for the night vibe. So I'm gonna put these guys back and probably go between the Etherlark song and the wildlife menagerie. So I'm gonna put the other guys back. Yeah, so those guys. And then let's listen in the Atmos sounds here. That also works, but it's almost like too much, too many flutes, too much wind. So let's not use that. Yeah, I love flutes, as you can tell, right? So let's see, maybe uh, that's also very gentle. This is more heart chakra for me, right? So we're not going to use that. So let's see, Vision Quest. Probably another flute. Sure. Yeah, and as the title suggests, we're going on a quest on a vision, so that's maybe not what we're going to use here. See the nature spirits, maybe those. Yeah, this could still be good. This could also be good for the fire, right? But we can have that a little bit. Like what I like about it is that it's all like natural, shakers. It's like seeds and stuff like that. And it's, called nature spirits. So that can be a maybe. Maybe not at the beginning, but maybe more further ahead. We could use these guys. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much that. So what we also have is here we have the sound healing rack and the shamanic effects rack. So here we have like one-shot samples of things like a gong, right? So we could try the gong. That could work. Could also just tune it down an octave. Transpose the 12 semitones here directly in the simpler. Yeah, here we go. I like that one. So now I can just create a MIDI clip, right click, insert empty MIDI clip. Just like make it red. And then go to the gong, right? It was the C one here. You can also just always preview. You click on that blue thing and then you can preview the sounds, right? So it's this one, the one that I just tuned down. So I can just double click to insert a note and then I can hit legato. So then it goes all the length. In this case, the loop is 1 bar. You're not going to want the gong to repeat every 1 bars, right? So we're probably going to set it to 9 bars or something like that. So we're going to here go to the length, set it to 9, and then just going to hit legato again to stretch it. I don't have to because the way that the sample works, it's just triggering the note and then it's just playing all the way to the end anyway. So So let's just listen how that feels if it repeats every 9 bars. You know, and maybe we don't want to have the flute start at the same time with the gong. So the flute comes first, and then the gong comes after. Maybe they don't even play together, right? Probably not. Probably the gong is more at the beginning. Even before the ditch, I would not play the gong with the ditch together. So let's just, and that's a cool thing, you know, you can always try things in session view before you commit to the arrangement. You just jam. So I'm turning off the ditch and the flute, and now just, you know, the drone and the gong, that should work really well. Even just the gong for starters, right? And then bringing in the nature spirits and the thing. It's way too loud, way too harsh. Right? And usually I always start with nature sounds anyway. That's the first thing that people are going to hear when they enter the space, because that instantly creates this feeling of home and safety and beauty and resonance, right? So I would start with that probably. Having the gong. And then also let's see, so there's also like shamanic sound effects here. We can also use these like in the performance to just trigger like with the push just every once in a while, right? I can just hit it on the push. But we could also see, wow, it's pretty loud. There's something like a drum in here as well, like a shamanic drum. This one here, the drum atmo. I accidentally pressed the hotspot button again. So if I hit play here, right? That is not like the lowest drum in the world, but we could start with that. So I insert an empty MIDI clip here again, find the low drum, which is probably the drum atmo. Yeah. And again, maybe let's just have that play for every 6 bars or something. And the gong is at the beginning, so maybe that comes, set the grid to 2 bars, 1 bar, so I can go to the second bar here, play the drum atmo here. Just turn off the preview, because every time the preview is on and I click on something, you hear the sample, right? But I don't always want to hear it, because like I know that this is the drum and I want it to be here. Sometimes it gets annoying, especially with such a textured sound that re-triggers all the time. It's just too much going on. So I'm just going to turn the preview off here. Yeah, nice. I love how the drum gets into the gong. Again, I'm curious what happens if I tune it down a little bit. So I go to the drum atmo here, and then we go to the transpose. Again, like maybe try a fifth down, -7 semitones. Yeah, it just makes it slower. It makes it not lower, but that's also because there's not much low end in there. We're going to find other drums in the other template as well. I'm going to combine it with the 432 Hertz bolts and drones anyway. That was the plan from the beginning. So yeah, for now, that's good. We can see if we want something else, but we don't want to be like too rhythmical, right? So maybe, I don't know about the wood chimes. They could work, but they're also pretty activating already. So maybe we just leave that for now. For now, I'm happy with what we have here. And now I'm going to add in some more elements from another template that goes really well with that, which is the 432 Hertz bolts and drones template, because again, it's in the same key, same tuning, same tempo. So it's the perfect companion. So you could say this is the sound journey part, and now we're going to the sound healing part, right? So now we're going to have a lot more opportunities. If I just go here to my browser, right, I have the places here, and I have already my external hard drive here. Just go here, Extreme SSD. I open the Ableton templates, and then here is the Chakra bolts and drones template. I can open it further here And for now, the cool thing is, we can just open it. And the way that this template is set up, I could just also just, insert everything. Maybe let's just, yeah, why not? I can do it, right? So now we're just going to put two templates in one and just double clicking on the groups. And you see it's just adding it, right? So now we have like two templates in one, basically. All of a sudden we have 30 channels instead of 16. Just gonna get rid of the temple bells here because I definitely don't need those. Definitely need the shamanic drums. That's mostly why I want to get it, but also you see we have all those bolts here. And we have also the Rex, which I like, so we're gonna use this ones. We're not gonna necessarily use the low drones here. It's more like ethereal, like we could use it. Let's see. Oh, that one is actually nice. Goes nice with the gong also. Huh. Yeah, why not? Just gonna bring that down here. So that's a singing bowl drone. Oh yeah, that's because I muted the other ones. So let's see how well that goes when that overlaps with the Arborea. Yeah, see, now it gets muddy. So that's the thing. We have to choose either or. I like the bowl with the gong. If you want, like if you didn't have the gong or the bowl, this is nice. But in the end, it's just like a low drone, like a low synth. So let's go with the organic stuff. So I'm not, and you hear it, right? You hear when it turns off, we're not missing anything. But if you compare, like if you would rather have the Arborea or the singing bowl drone, I would rather have the singing bowl drone because it pairs super well with the gong. So that's awesome. And then, we have all those chakra drones here actually, which then also have a texture. So this one, has some stones. Oh, we have a disk issue. Right, it has some stones to it. Some texture. So we could put that subtly in there. Psychoacoustics. Definitely associate the stones with, like earthy material. And you need to see what the levels is sometimes. We don't really need it though. We already have a lot going on. There's more important stuff. But if you didn't have that, you could go with that, right? That's the whole concept of this template, is that for each chakra, there's an element, and then it's kind of like having the sounds, right? So that will be water with the, and then we had fire here, right? But I think today we don't really need it, so I'm just going to delete that. Pretty happy with the low end. And kind of the stones don't agree really well together with the birds, so just gonna leave that. But then what we have here is the crystal bowl racks, which I really like, so we can play additional bowls. And we have like the low ones here as well. Oh yeah, this one has the granular echo. So maybe I turn that off because that's way too cosmic right now. Just like this. Right, but we already have the gong. So, and the drone. It's not really adding that much. Although it is nice to have a little hit also. Yeah, we could alternate between the two. Yeah, it's definitely as an option, like it doesn't have to be all the time, but why not? So I'm just gonna create another MIDI clip here. Maybe we make that, I don't know, 12 bars or something. And I set the thing here to 2 bars so that I can easily throw it in. So we start maybe with the low one, maybe around here after 4. And then the higher one, maybe around here, something like that. So let's just see how that goes. Nice. Or maybe actually can come early already. Oh, there's the gong, so we need to wait. And there was the texture drum, so I think it's good here. Yeah, it's also good to have the gong first and then the bowl. So that's okay. And then there's also the shamanic drums here, right? So there's also singing bowls. I don't know if we need those ones, but we can check the Tibetan singing bowls here. So let's see how that sounds. There's still some space in the mix. Ah, it's too metallic. I don't really like it. Let's try this one. That is nice. I like the sound of that. I like the feel of that. So I will bring that in somewhere in between. Maybe have like 5 bars or something, right? We always want to have different loop lengths to create this polymeter thing so that they never trigger at the same time and that they're kind of shifting a little bit here and there because they have different retrigger times. So that was that one here, the root, right? Maybe put it here. Maybe 5 is too much. Maybe, I mean, 2, maybe 7. Because 5 is like, then it comes too often. Oh, dang, they were triggering at the same time. That was not what I wanted. So this one needs to go here then. We can wait a little more even for the gong to ring out. Yeah, so that's why it's always good to check and feel. Obviously, you can always still move it around in the arrangement, but let's say if we actually prepare something for performance in session view, then you need to be really aware where you place the sounds, right? Because they're gonna play at the same time. And you don't want to hit like 2 balls at the same time, and then you're like, it's irritating and it sounds weird and it gets muddy or masking happens. Okay, all the other stuff I'm not going to use. We don't need high drones. Oh, but maybe the sustained hits. Let's see. Yeah, all these are nice to have here and there. So, how does that one sound? Yeah, those are all like really good bowl recordings. And yeah, this one we don't need. So let's just check this one. Ooh. Also nice. This gives us some options later for the arrangement, right? Because we don't need to loop things. We can also have them just like as one shots and we put them here and there and we have even more control in the arrangement. So, and then we can look at the waveforms also and we can see where a transient is and where something ends and starts and put it in between. It's way more easy to layer things actually in arrangement view because you actually see the waveforms all at once, one after the other, right? That's a big advantage of the arrangement view. The big advantage here is like you're super modular and flexible. You can jam and try things out, start this, stop that, here and there. But actually for layering things, to see things, it really helps in arrangement view. So I would layer and edit, in the arrangement view, but obviously perform in session view. Okay, cool. And here's the shamanic drum rack where I wanted to create some drum rhythms here. There's already one by default. Let's see how that sounds. Oh, dang, everything else is not playing anymore. Why is that? Did I just accidentally stop everything? No worries, I can just hit the whole scene here, right? It's a lot happening now. But let's just see with the drums. Oh yeah, I like it. Obviously not both drums at the same time. The other one is more textural. So we need to see with the placement again. Yeah, but that's a lot of elements that we have for now. So we can start with that. We didn't even play the ditch yet. So yeah, there's a lot of options. So there's one way where you could just copy and paste everything, like click on a clip, copy it, go to arrangement, like click the tab key to switch between the arrangements or check it here on top, you switch between the views. But there's another way as well. We can just record everything, right? Because now you see everything is selected for playback, right? Everything has the green play button. All the clips here. Also these guys. So what I can do now is I just hit record. I'm just going to turn the volume down for a bit now because it's going to be too much playing all at once. And hit record here, hit play, and then switch back to arrangement. And it's going to record all the sounds in here, right? And then I can also stop the recording now. Like you can wait, like whatever, many bars. You would have to at least wait 48 bars, because this is how long some of the clips are. But another easy way is to just stretch the samples out. And you see they are grayed out, right? And that's the weird thing, this interesting relationship that Ableton has between session and arrangement. So the thing is, it will always prioritize session view over arrangement view, right? And because they're sharing the same channels, but the clips are not the same. So these clips here are their own identities and entities, and these ones are the same sounds, but the clips are not the same clips. So, and I could play another sound here now, the Cosmic Illuminatus, and then this would play, right? Even though in arrangement view, we see the Sunstone portal, but it's not playing, you see? It's the Cosmic Illuminatus now playing and not the Sunstone portal. And so in order to fix that, we have to press this orange button here. It's on both ends. Here is on the top, right? And here's on the bottom, this orange play thing here. And that means back to arrangement. So that means, and I show you in session first, it just stops the playback of all what's going on in session view. Like all of the clips, they're going to stop at once, and it just defaults to arrangement view. So if I click here now, boom, see they all stopped at once, and now these are not grayed out anymore. So now I have access to them, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of everything that we don't need. So I'm going to delete all the channels that I'm not using right now, right? That helps me to get organized. So I'm just going to look, are they empty? Yeah. So just going to delete all the empty channels. Nice. That one. Oh wait, didn't I now play that? I like it. Big Tibetan Bowl. 14. Oh no, it's here. Okay. Yeah, that was the drone maybe. Right, so that's the first thing. I have all these guys now. And then what I can do is I can shift click and then grab them at the end and just actually drag them out as long. So until they restart here, right? So I can see where there's this tiny little line here. This is indicating the loop is restarting. So it has reached its maximum length. So it's for most of them, it's 24 bars, right? But then the other ones are going a little longer here, the shamanic portal ones. So I have to drag longer. Wow, this one goes super long. See, this one is 64 bars, and then it starts re-triggering here. So I'm gonna have that here. Probably the same for this one. Yep. The birds here are 32. And then all the other stuff is already re-triggering earlier. So we can put default that to, yeah, I mean, it depends on our loop length, right? So that's the thing. And now we have MIDI here. What we can do is we can just bounce it to audio, which will make it easier to actually adjust on the things here. And it's also good to commit, right? So I could just right click here and say, like bounce track in place, then, but then we're going to lose the rack and maybe I want to use some other sounds here, right? So what I can do then is just right click, bounce track. Where was it? Bounce to new track, right? Is that not here? Freeze track. What? Is it only possible in session view? So that is channel 4. Huh, yeah, it's only possible in session view. So if I right click here, bounce to new track, I will create an audio file of that. We still have the MIDI here. It's grayed out now, but I can just press 0 to activate it again. But here we have now, what was that? The gong, right? So then this time I'm going to hit Command X to cut it. And then I'm going to put it here. Now it's channel 5. Just going to put it in here, right? And then I'm going to delete this one because we don't need it. I'm not going to delete the channel because maybe I want to use it, but maybe I put it down here, somewhere. So that is the gong. And again, those are the shamanic sound effects. I'm going to do the same here because I want to see the wave file. So I'm going to also bounce that to the new track. And then, this is the drum atmo. I want to cut that as well. Command X. And that's channel 6. Right? And so for these ones, we don't have to have them re-trigger. We just want to have them actually once. So then I can delete that MIDI thing here and bring that up. Right? We want to get organized. That's the whole idea. So then we have the crystal ball here, right? So those are the two ones. So we can now, to this one we can commit. I'm not going to choose any more other things here. So I'm just going to right click and bounce track into place. So then we're going to get rid of the MIDI channel, which also helps us to not just get more channels than needed, right? So now instead of MIDI, this is just an audio channel, right? So now we have the bounce here, which are the two bowls. And that's cool. And then all this is audio, and this is the shamanic drum, which we also gonna do into MIDI, but it's just like a 1-bar loop, right? So it's okay like this. for now, I'm not going to change it, even though there's some really cool shamanic drums in here. Like, could create other rhythms, right? But for the sake of simplicity right now, I'm just gonna bounce it also. So I'm gonna right click and bounce that track into place as well. So I'm gonna get rid of the MIDI, just have the audio here, right? And now what we can do is we can zoom out a little bit and I can hit Command A and I just move them over. So you can imagine this is like a canvas, right? And here we have all the colors, like this is the blank canvas, nothing on here, but here's all the colors. We already have selected a palette, a color palette, right? And now we can start painting. So we can think of how we want to start the journey, right? And then we can play around. So obviously, as I said, I like to start with nature sounds, right? So I'm going to put the nature sounds first, and I'm just going to move that over. And this is how I'm going to start. And also maybe let's move it over a little more to have a little bit more space, but still be able to see it. Okay, so now I'm just gonna set the loop here, maybe to 12 bars, because I like to work in multiples of 12, and dance music, I like to work in multiples of 8. But here I like to work in multiples of 3, 6, and 9, and 12 seems to be the equivalent of 16 bars here, or 24 actually. But yeah, let's see. I'm just gonna listen. Obviously, I want to fade that in, right? Because if it's, I mean, there's a natural fade. It could be fine, but I just like to fade things in. So I'm just gonna create a little fade here at the beginning. When you go to the clip and you find this little box, you drag it over. So we're gonna fade that in gently. Maybe that's a little bit too slow. And now this sounds pretty quiet because the master is not, so I have to bring the master up. Okay, so that's the first thing, right? And then I want to start usually with the sound healing. So we start simple and then we get more complex. So let's start, with a gong or like a little Tibetan bowl or something like that. Mm, yeah, let's try the gong first, see how that feels. Maybe after 6 bars or something like that. I'm always like looking at the numbers here, right? And also checking the waveforms. So this means after 6 bars, the gong comes in. Always good to listen in context, always start from the beginning again, close your eyes, feel it. Right now it's not very complex, but it's going to get more complex. And then it's always good to have the context and to see how it all feels as a whole, not just get stuck in the loop because it can be misleading. Ah, you know what? I think it's a little bit too aggressive to start with that. So maybe we could start something more simple, gentle, I mean. Maybe a singing bowl. Let's see how that sounds here. Oh yeah, that's nice. Nice and gentle. So I'm gonna bring that up. Gonna like create the order based on the way that it's appearing in the journey. That makes it easier for mixing also. And then I'm gonna bring that over. And even maybe, have it just fade in. So the first hit is not gonna be a hit, it's gonna be a sustain. And then they start at the same time. Oh, that's too early. Maybe. Yeah, let's give it some time for the nature sounds. That's the thing, we don't need to rush anything here. Hmm. Yeah, that feels good. And again, the invitation again is just to come back to the coherence, right? Take a deep breath, set the intention, create from that space. I've done this many times, so I can also do it like from a kind of different space, like more heady and more from a teacher perspective. But actually, it's good to also, remind myself that it can be even better if I'm in the proper state and not only in my mind so much. So that's why I think it's really helping to slow things down and to just remind myself, take a deep breath and get into a state of coherence while at the same time showing you those things. So, so now we have that, and that's really nice. And maybe this can go a little further, at least until here, I find, until 24. Maybe that ball is a bit loud. Depends. Yeah, it actually is a bit loud. We didn't hear it so much with the sustain, but now I feel like, whoa, it's a bit too much. Hmm, that's better. Okay, and then I feel this is beautiful until here. And then what we can do in between is like a little atmospheric sounds, right? So like, for example, I was hearing the drum atmo, right? So also just put a little bit more texture already, maybe in between. And this could also be a nice transition. So you can use atmospheric sounds to glue things more together, because they lead into each other, especially if they are like overlapping a little bit. So let's say it starts a little early, but then it overlaps a little bit, right? So, but then it can bring in this transition because it's kind of catching our attention in a way, and then we can introduce a new element rather than just bringing it in and out. So those little things can be transition sounds as well, or bridges, as well as just supporting the atmosphere. So let's see how that feels. Mm-hmm. Okay, the gong is way too loud, but now I think it can come in. And I think I like the position where it is right now. Mm-hmm. So what else do we have here? Oh, we have the drone. We could start like bringing that drone in actually, so that can go up. And again, I would probably fade that in. So maybe something like that. Let's see. Listen. Yeah, I like how gentle it's coming in. Beautiful. Nice. Okay, now I feel the gong was too early, right? And this is why it's important always to listen in context. Maybe I want the gong to be here. Oh no, then it's going to overlap with that. So we want to keep that pulse going. That's a good rhythm. So maybe here could be good. Or maybe here. Maybe here. Nice. Okay, so what we have, the ditch, it's too early for that. That's another flute. Yeah, let's focus on the sound healing a little bit more because later it's gonna be pretty crowded, and the idea is that we're gonna do a little bit more yeah, kind of like rhythmical and more moving stuff like with the ditch, it's like it's a different vibe. It kind of has this activation as well. Oh, wait, just wanted to see the chat, but then there's nothing new in here. I just said there's a new message, but there was not actually. Um, yeah, so let's see this one. Uh-huh. Yeah. Then we have this one. Yeah, that one is also really nice. And then, yeah, they're all pretty nice. So we can alternate between them. So we have the drone here. So let's listen to that one again. That is a little brighter, right? Okay, how does that sound? Oh yeah, that needs to keep going, obviously. Oh, see, now they were overlapping, and that's exactly what we don't want. So this one was triggering, and this one was triggering at the same time. So that needs to go over if we actually want to have it in there. Listen from the gong again. Just gonna get rid of the group here. I'm gonna ungroup it because then we have a channel less. Same here, ungroup it. Okay, now this one is hitting. Okay, let's not make it too obvious always on the beat. Now I'm just gonna move it over a little bit so it's not on the beat, right? A little bit more humanized. Because as a human, you would never play on the beat unless you would have a metronome with your singing bowls. Yeah, that's good. It's more like human. Okay, now let's bring in this one. Oh, this one is too loud and too bright for me. I don't like it. So I'm just gonna put that back. Just have a little fade out here. And then just maybe move that over here a little bit. Oh, dang. I just hit it at the same time. So maybe here. Also, let's just cut that up and move that over. Also to break the pattern a little bit, right? Sometimes it's nice to be locked in, but it can also be like, I don't know, too monotonous or like too predictable, which is also can be good. Can be good to have a good rhythm, but let's just felt like breaking it up a little bit. So you can just always go somewhere, cut it with Command E, and then you have can move it around, right? So let's see. Oh, that's also pretty loud. And that way down. Yeah, nice. And now we're breaking the pattern here, so it's not just coming here, it's coming later. Wait, and now I feel like the drum wants to come in, the other one. Now we want to slowly, like we're like 3 minutes in. Let's imagine this is like a 15-minute journey. We could slowly start to get like increase it a little bit until like 10 minutes and then have a 5-minute build down or outro or grounding, landing kind of thing. So yeah, I want to bring in the drums now somewhere. So let's bring that up. Yeah, actually, let's put the drums close to each other. So here, it also makes sense later in the mix. Put similar elements together. So I'm just gonna loop it so that I can extend it. And oh, it's happening here. Something. Oh yeah, it needs to start here, obviously. And then let's see, what is the tempo here? 60 beats. Okay, that's all good. So yeah, maybe the drum can start in between here. Just listen to it. Always starting with the gong as a reference point here. If we want, we can have that one more time again to just introduce the other drums. Feels a little bit isolated. So maybe actually I want to bring in another element with the drum. Either the dish or the flute. Probably the flute first. Let's see. Also like fade that in. No, that can already come earlier. Yeah, nice. I like it that it's kind of mysterious. And it's kind of gentle, but it's adding a nice texture. And now the ditch can slowly come in. So we're just gonna fade that in. Okay, and then slowly want to reduce a little bit the singing bowls here. So I think these guys can stop. And maybe that one as well, like just for a bit. Just focus on the ditch and then we can automate the volume a little bit, make it louder. We already have a utility here, which is very handy. So I'm just gonna hit the automation button now. And then I can automate the gain. If I click on here, it's selected, right? So I can set a dot here and set a dot here, and then increase that slightly. Right, so the ditch gets louder over time. Yeah, now I feel the nature spirits. Where are they? Where we lose the nature spirits? Huh. Oh, I deleted the channel because I thought we were not using it. Dang. Okay. Well, that was the Atmos channels. Thank God I can bring them back. I just go to current project here. And then I can see, no, that's not how it works. Okay. Let's go here. Shamanic portals. Atmos. Boop. Spirit guardians. No. There we are. Nature spirits. And I can just drop it like so. Copy it. And yeah, let's put them close to the ditch. I'm just gonna like, yeah, just maybe duplicate that channel. Command D. Just gonna delete the ditch here and put the nature spirits here and fade them in. Okay, let's see how the gong feels. Nice. And then those bolts are coming. Yeah. All right, sweet. I'm pretty happy so far. That feels really good. Obviously, it's good to listen from the beginning again. So maybe let's just do that. I don't know how you feel about the time. We're already over it. Do you have like 5 more minutes to listen to it? If not, we can just do it like next time, right? Um, but yeah, maybe it's good just to listen to it, right? Just get a feel for it until here. And there's also maybe a moment where we can like um, have a moment of grounding and integration. So if you need to go, feel free to go. You can say goodbye in the chat. And if not, I'm just going to close my eyes now and just going to listen and feel from the beginning. Okay, and we can set the intention that we are nodes supporting the field to remember itself and remember coherence. Connect with the earth, feel our feet on the ground. Connect with our body. Take a deep breath in. So I'm gonna gently fade out. Yeah, wow. That was like a little time travel, because that was the longest 5 minutes in the whole week. Sometimes I just feel like, where is the time going? It just feels like, but those 5 minutes just like felt like at least like 15. I don't know how about you. But yeah, it's just always fascinating how time is like really malleable and flexible also, um, depending on the state we're in and the sounds we are listening to. Yeah, the only thing I noticed was, the nature spirits, they were pretty harsh and high frequencies. So I was just using the effect rack here that is on each channel, just using a filter to roll off a little bit of the highs. So I made a cut at 8,000. So everything above 8,000 is not there. Add a little bit of echo and space also to smooth it out a little bit and to diffuse it a bit. But yeah, other than that, I was super happy with everything so far. Okay, so that was it for today. Yeah, and the next one we will just continue. And then we will see also like another approach where we just go straight from session view and just, jam. And we will also see how we can like reverse engineer this. So we're just gonna finish it. We make not gonna make it 15 minutes, more like maybe 8 or 9 or something. And then we're gonna reverse engineer it back into session view as well, just to show you those approaches as well. And then you can see for yourself what works best, try different things. And yeah, that's it for today. Have a beautiful rest of your day or a beautiful night, and see you next week.